Welcome to the Blind Apex Podcast, where amateur club racers tune in to get faster.
This episode is brought to you by Deechworks Fuel Systems. Visit deechworks.com for all your fuel system needs. As always, I'm your host, Con Jonturk, and on this episode, we're going to talk about live streaming. How to get into it, how to mitigate some issues, how to take it to the next level. I might share my desires. We'll see what we can get into. Because my topic is pretty personal to me, I want to be able to share with my family, probably like most people, but all over the world. I have family in Canada, Turkey, every corner of the United States. But I don't know what I'm doing. So obviously I'm bringing somebody in, or some people in this case, to help me out. Joining me, a couple of West Coast kids. One of you is at least an endurance racer. Both of you guys seem to enjoy overlanding. Owners, developers, and masterminds of MyRaces.Live. Erwan and Claire, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So,
thank you.
Yeah. I this was happen circumstance because I think I was researching James Houghton for a future podcast. I think Erwan or whoever was in control of your Instagram account followed me, maybe, or I followed you. I don't remember.
It's possible. Yeah.
I don't remember who followed who first. And then when I started digging into, because I don't let everybody follow me. I don't care if it's a business account. I'm not letting everybody, no spam bots or any of that stuff. So I was looking and I was like, perfect. I've been trying to cover this topic forever. And I want to see if you guys will do it. I think I DM'd you guys immediately and was like, hey, you want to come on the show? But let's get your guys' background in racing and this development project that you guys have going on and how you got into all this mess.
Sure. You want to go ahead, Claire?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, thanks for having us. It's our first podcast about this project. So I'm very excited to talk about it here. So my racing background is pretty new. I started racing in 2021. Before that, I was more into sim racing, and then I had the opportunity to race with a team in Sonoma during one of the 24 Hours of Le Mans. And they were missing a driver. I asked if they would take a new driver like me, and they were up for it. So I joined the team. That was my first race, and I really enjoyed it. So I, kept going after that, and I'm usually racing with Erwan in endurance races now.
Yeah, Lemons folks seem to really be like, "Oh, you're new? Yeah, you have to come with us." They're really, really inviting folks.
Oh, yeah. I think that's a great way to get into racing, actually. People are pretty open with your skill level.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've raced, I do a lot of sprint racing. I've never jumped into a Lemons car or Lemons team, though Bill Fisher from Garage Heroes and Trainings keeps threatening to put me on a team. But I all I hear is good stories. So that's an awesome way to get into it.
Yeah, you should try it. It's pretty fun. As for me, I have a bit of a longer racing history. I started off probably as a lot of people have, and that's just lapping at my local track. So at the time, I was doing some lapping days at Calabogie Motorsports Park back in Ottawa. So before I moved to California, I was in Ottawa, and that kind of grew into I started instructing there with various groups, and then became a track instructor, and then eventually I decided I want to get into some racing. And they had some local kind of sprint races there, evening races that were happening. So I started doing some sprint racing at Calabogie. And then I got linked up with a team that's based out of the track called Tooth Autosport. And they do all sorts of racing. But one of the things that really attracted me at that time was the endurance racing side. And we started doing, Champ Car. And so I did that for a few years. And then basically more recently, it's been really focused on the endurance stuff. I haven't done any sprint racing the last few years. But certainly some endurance, WRL, Champ Car, Lemons with Claire as well. So yeah, that's kind of where I've come from.
Sweet. How did you guys get into this live streaming world? Was it the endurance racing? Is there such a demand in endurance racing for that type of equipment? And is there that big of a need?
Well, honestly, I'd say it really started off as a personal project. So I've kind of been, both Claire and I are kind of into the tech world. When I started endurance racing, I thought it'd be kind of cool if we could live stream, both for the folks in the pit that could watch what's going on track, but also like if you want to share with your friends and family. So this kind of started off as like one of my personal, like I just wanted to see if I could make this work. And I'd have kind of dabbled in and out of trying to get live stream to work for the last few years. And then more recently, maybe in the last year and a half, Claire and I started talking about it more, and we started talking about how, well, if we're going to live stream something, it's one thing to share a link of a live stream to your race. It's another thing to make it semi-interesting for your viewers, because especially if you're doing endurance racing, someone tunes in at any moment during the race. It's hard for them to understand like how you're doing. So we were getting a lot of questions from like our friends and family watching, what position are you in? Are you doing well? Like, how's it going? Who's driving the car? Because in endurance racing, of course, you have multiple drivers, right? Mm-hmm. And so we decided, well, it'd be kind of cool if we could just like add an overlay to the live stream, and when we share with our friends and family, they get some additional information, right? And that was kind of where we started, and then it grew into, okay, well, if we're going to do that, we're learning a lot of things about live streaming, both in just research into hardware, software, how it works, and so it kind of expanded from the idea of just adding overlays into, hey, let's kind of try and build a community of people who are trying to do the same thing, and we can share what we've learned, and hopefully others can share what they've learned, so that, as a community, we can come together and actually get live streaming off the ground and get more of it out there so people can start sharing their live videos with their friends and family.
Yeah. So before we get into the live stream technical details, can you guys give us a summary of MyRaces.Live and what your project is and what you really want to do? I mean, you got into it a little bit, but I'm sure there's more there.
Sure. Claire, you want to take that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So like Erwan said, initially it started just as a personal project. We wanted to make our video more interesting for our family and friends. And then as we were doing that, we started to build a user interface for ourselves to be able to deploy the solution faster and faster. So when we do our races and we want to add overlay, we have a user interface to make our life easier. And as we were building this user interface, we were like, well, it would be really cool if we build a user interface that not only we can use, but everybody can use. And it started kind of from there. So we've been developing this piece of software called MyRaces.Live. It's basically a web portal. You can go online, register, have a free account. And it allows you just in a couple of clicks to build a custom overlay for your race, where you can have, you can decide to add live race data for your race. You can have add your sponsor's logo, add some QR code to redirect people to your sponsors and personal websites. And you can add a bunch of really cool things to make your video more attractive and interesting to watch. And the user portal just asks you, when are you planning to stream? You give us the date, the time of day, and then we're going to deploy a whole infrastructure behind the scene to receive your stream, add this overlay, and stream back to whatever destination you want. Right now, we support streaming to YouTube, so we stream automatically to our YouTube channel. So you have additional visibility of your stream and your content, and you can also stream to your own YouTube. And that's kind of what MyRaces.Live app is. It's like very simple user interface to try to make your in-car video more interesting for whoever you like to share it with.
Yeah, and I think that's important because there's a couple of hurdles, right? You have to get your live streaming together, but then you have to get it to the people that you want to see it or that want to see it, whether you want them to or not. Like my dad would be all over watching my race, even though he doesn't even know about my racing, but he wants to see it all the time. So he's always like threatening to drive all the way down to whatever race I'm at and watch. This would cut out some driving for him. So that would probably be good.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's talk about, you talked about you guys support YouTube right now. How are the most of the people you're working with right now setting their hardware up to then get you that stream?
Yeah, so hardware is like, it's a pretty big topic. We spent a lot of time looking at different combinations of hardware and testing things ourselves. So
I'm sure. I got lost on the internet trying to figure it out for me. I mean, there's Facebook groups, there's Reddit groups, there's
you can get down a rabbit hole, right? Like it's
deep.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll try and summarize and you cut me off if I start going too deep down the rabbit hole. But okay, in terms of hardware, there's a few things you have to keep in mind. One is your budget. That's probably number one, right? Because just like anything else, especially car related, you can go from spending very little money to spending a ridiculous amount of money to get live streaming working, right? Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, there's kind of like three main components to live streaming video from your car. The first one obviously is the camera, right? So you have to have a camera that can have pretty good video quality. Potentially it can live stream itself. Potentially it also has capability of doing networking live stream, like the connection out to the cell network itself. So there's lots of options for camera. We can dive into those in a second. The second piece of the puzzle is, of course, that network connectivity piece, right? You're live streaming, so you need some sort of connectivity in the car. So usually that's in the form of a hotspot of sorts, right? So is that hotspot, like I said, is it built into the camera? Is it another piece of hardware that you're going to have in the car? Is it cell signal with a specific provider? Is it maybe bonding multiple providers together? At the very extreme, we've seen folks use Starlink on a car. Like we met a gentleman out here in California who actually mounted Starlink on his endurance car, and they were streaming using Starlink, right? So
that
was a whole bunch of options.
Car. It had
that
to
was
be
a Lemons car.
It had to be.
It was a Lemons car, absolutely.
Okay.
I mean, it was an awesome setup. I must say, shout out to Gus in our Discord. He has an incredible live streaming setup. He can stream, I think, like 4K video out of his car. It's awesome. It's awesome. And then, of course, the last piece of the puzzle is the mounting, right? Like you got to mount all this in the car somehow. So, some cars you have like a built-in camera system, like an AIM system or V-Box system, and then the mounting of the camera and all that's kind of taken care of by that. But if you buy yourself a camera like a GoPro or a Yi or the other DJI Osmos, now you have to mount these things, and you have to mount them pretty strongly so they don't fall when you're racing. And then you have to maybe attach that to a hotspot. You have to mount the hotspot, potentially a battery pack if you're not powering it through the car. So there's a whole bunch of different things you have to keep in mind with hardware. So I don't know which one you want to dive into, but maybe we'll pause there and see what maybe piques your interest there.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the camera. I don't know. Have you guys ever worked? Well, it's new. The Racekeeper has a new Racekeeper Live camera. Sentinel has their streaming device. I know one guy I race with uses some variable of a GoPro. I refuse. I threw all my GoPros into the woods and I never looked back because I could never get them to consistently work for me.
Yep.
Oh, yeah.
There's challenges with the camera. So I was reading your website and I know you guys have a recommendation. So I've been looking into that one some more. But in general, the mounting challenge of your camera is a big deal. Heat, vibration, all that stuff. I think the GoPros have a heat sensor problem usually. But can you talk about the camera and sort of the challenges and things to think about when you're picking one?
Yeah, for sure. Maybe, Erwan, we can start with what are all the things we've tried.
Yeah, go ahead.
We bought a bunch of things. I think the first camera we bought was we started streaming with was the Yi. And when we started with the Yi, I don't know if it was pure luck or what, but I remember having better streaming experience with the E like 3 years ago than with some of the more recent equipment we've used. And that's because regardless of the equipment you're going to buy, sometimes there are other dimensions that's going to destroy your live streaming experience. The weather, the track condition, the how you mounted it in the car. But so we started with the E. We had a really good experience with the E. Why? Because it's super light to mount in the car. It has very good video and audio quality is decent as well. It's very easy to start the live stream on. You have this app that generates a QR code that you can reuse over and over. It contains the same information for your live stream, like the same, video, audio settings, your destination for your live stream. It's one QR, all embedded in one QR code, and you scan it, and then boom, it starts. The heat was is definitely challenging with the E, but that's with all the equipment. Heat is your worst enemy, and all of those cameras are usually not made for being in a race car. So it's something that's you're gonna experience with whatever hardware you buy, and I haven't really found a solution for. We haven't found a solution for is the heat issue, except like placing your equipment in a place of the car where it has good airflow. The E was always giving us a good result. The reason we had to find an alternative to the E is because the E is no longer sold, right? So they barely keep supporting the app. They removed the app from the App Store, then you couldn't use the app anymore at all. And they only recently put a link back up on their website so you can still download the app and still configure your old E. But moving forward, you can't go E anymore.
Yeah, that's terrible, because in my research, that's what everyone was saying. Go buy a used E on eBay or Marketplace and it'll work.
It's dangerous because you don't know whenever the app is going to stop working. So you can try, and because it's cheap, I would say go and try it. It's cheap enough that even if it only works for the next year, it's still worth the money you're going to spend for a year of use. It's my personal opinion, but
I don't know what they're going for these days, because I sort of was like, okay, you can't buy them new. And you're right. I tried to, when I was looking, the App Store didn't have the app, and I was like, well, that's going to be a big problem. So I sort of abandoned hope on that. So
that's for the E. Maybe Erwan, you want to talk about the next ones we've tried after that?
Yeah, just maybe another comment on the E, and just addressing the app thing. I know the whole QR code generation. If you have a E 4K Plus, we actually added in our software the ability to generate the QR code. So if you have a E 4K, not the non-plus version, you have to use the app, because we weren't able to generate a QR code for those. But the E 4K Plus, if you use our portal, we can actually generate the QR code for you. We were able to figure out how they generate the QR codes and use that. Just as a small note, because we had that issue where, we ran into the same issue. We were trying to use the app, and then anyway, we figured we could build a QR code ourselves. Yeah. So other things that we've tried. Okay. So we had the E, and then we tried the big ones, right? Like the GoPro and the DJI Osmo. Those are kind of the main, like, adventure cams, like, that could potentially live stream. And our experience has been similar to what you were saying. Like the GoPro can't live stream for very long. It overheats or it randomly disconnects. The interface to get it to connect is not very good. We've had very little luck with the GoPro. We have had some users who have had some good experiences with GoPro. We have one user who's shared in our Discord. He kind of shared his setup where he actually, he's a developer himself, so he kind of went above and beyond, but he's able to actually control the GoPro remotely from some software he built. And that kind of helps with like making sure that it stays connected or reconnects and that sort of stuff. But if you just take a GoPro out of the box, our experience for live streaming has been pretty poor. So I definitely would not recommend the GoPro from our own personal experience. And then there's the DJI Osmo 3. I know they're coming out with the 4 shortly. That camera actually has incredible video quality, and it works quite well for short streams. So if you're into like sprint racing, like you were saying that's kind of what you're into, the DJI I think is a pretty good option. With the exception of the user interface to configure it. So you have to have their app to configure the live stream, and you have to connect your phone to the camera using Bluetooth. And that whole experience is super kludgy. And it is like, annoying at best, I would say, is a good way to put it. But if you get it working and you get it started for short amounts of time, I would say maybe upwards to 45 minutes to an hour, it's generally pretty good. The where it gets tricky is if you're trying to do like an endurance race with it, it tends to eventually disconnect. And one of the things we didn't really talk about, but with each of these cameras, they have different behavior when they disconnect from the server. And one of the things that we really liked about the Yi, for instance, was that it actually tries to reconnect. So if there was like a bad cell connection to one of the corners on your racetrack, which is very common, if the camera disconnects from the live stream server, the Yi just tries to reconnect automatically, which is awesome. But the GoPro, the DJI, both of them don't ever try to reconnect, right? So if you happen to have a bad cell service at the racetrack because it's super busy there, or there's a corner that's far off from the cell tower, both the DJI and the GoPro will actually fail to continue streaming, which is really disappointing and annoying, especially if you're endurance racing or sprint racing with some bad coverage.
As a DJI nerd, because I have a drone, I have some of their gimbal products. If your phone turns off or blacks out, so if your phone has a heat problem also, because I'm going to assume for the DJI action film camera, it's going to need to be, your phone's going to need to be in the car to stay Bluetooth connected, right?
No, actually, it's pretty good. You can actually have a hotspot, so you can tell it to which Wi-Fi network to use, and you don't have to have your phone in a car.
Okay,
which is super convenient. Yeah,
that's helpful
when it works.
Yeah. So, I feel like it's going to be a lot of trial and error for lots of folks, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's the reality of it.
Yeah, and then some people, I'm not techno Amish as some people say, but I'm into tech to a certain degree, but I also get frustrated easily. So, I need the easiest route when it comes to this stuff. Plus, I should not be thinking about, and I think this is a problem in general. No one wants to think about, is my camera doing what it's supposed to when you're getting ready to go race, right? You want to think about the race and what you need to do to execute well. So
exactly.
Oh yeah. I think with streaming, it is a steep learning curve, and it is a lot of frustration initially, especially if you unfortunately, the first time you tried was on a track that has, challenging network service coverage, or is in challenging weather condition. And that's going to be your first experience trying to live stream. It's going to be a horrible one. But I've learned that if you, like everything else that's, challenging, is once you start understanding all the challenges and work a solution for each of them, you can start having fun, a lot of good results with your live stream. And that's when it starts to be really fun and you get addicted to live streaming. Like nowadays with Erwan, when we go racing, there's not a race we don't want to try live streaming at. We're always going to think about live streaming, and we have, we are spoiled because we have a lot of equipment at home because we're doing this all the time. So we can kind of choose what equipment we want to bring based on where we're going. Mm-hmm. But once you start building your experience, it's super rewarding and it's super fun to be able to share what you're doing with your friends. So I think it's worth the initial hustle.
So you guys both mentioned connection challenges and equipment and stuff. So I want to jump to the connection also because I wanted to highlight something that I saw on your website. So obviously Verizon's not going to work everywhere. AT&T is not going to work everywhere. T-Mobile, there's the big three basically in cellular service. And unless you're going to install Starlink on your race car, which I probably don't recommend. I'm not sure how that's surviving vibration issues, but whatever. You guys on your website have by track rating of what you know has worked. So you have a historical knowledge of what's working where, right?
Yep. Yeah, we're pretty happy about having studied this idea. Because we started documenting this information for ourselves. Because one thing with live streaming is there's no point of even trying your live stream if the network coverage at a certain track is not at a certain, it's not good enough. And if you want to reduce the frustration around the challenges of live stream, you kind of want to have expectation and know what to expect at each track you go to before you spend a lot of effort on your live stream solution. So that was kind of the idea behind it. And we had, because we've live streamed to a lot of places, we started documenting that for ourselves. And we're like, how can we share this with other people so that they know that it's not the camera, it's the track, there's nothing they can do there. And if there is a good track and it's not working, then they can blame it on the camera. And at least they can try to work that out.
Yeah.
It also helps them with people understand, like, if they're starting out and they know they always race at a certain few tracks as part of the race series that they happen to be a part of. If we have enough data that supports that Verizon is better than AT&T, then it gives them a starting point for figuring out which provider they may want to select for their live stream, right? So I think for us, it was just getting the information out there. How people use it, hopefully it becomes useful to people in terms of, setting expectations, as Claire said, or selecting a provider. We also have the equipment on there. So we try and collect all the information. Like it was Verizon, but it was Verizon with this particular hotspot and this particular camera, and it worked really well. And that gives people an idea of where to start, right? So that was a general idea behind exposing it and allowing people to contribute to the database.
Yeah, and I commend you guys for doing that because there's a commitment level to this, right? So if I'm going to buy a hotspot, I need to know that it works where I go or where I primarily go, okay, to a certain confidence level. Like Claire said, that helps you troubleshoot if you have trouble. But at the same time, I had given up hope on live streaming, I'll be honest, okay? But now it lets me look at it and go, okay, I don't care how much you spend on your camera, it doesn't go anywhere without the connection. And that's what you commit to. That's the monthly commitment, that you're going to pay in addition to your cell phone bill or whatever. You tie it to your cell phone bill, you tie it to whatever. You're going to commit to that. Yeah. You're probably going to sign a contract with it, right? And you want to know that that's going to work and to start collecting that data. I think there's only one track that I go to and there's one person that says AT&T works there. Okay, that's a start, right? I'll use my phone as the hotspot and then we'll try to work it there. And if it works there, then I can go to an AT&T hotspot because we know they usually get better signal strength than just for data anyway, than the phone itself. So it gave me a little hope.
That's a great way. Yeah. It's a good process to maybe start with your phone, right? You can tell at a track whether, a service provider is good at that spot or not, just looking at how many bars of signal strength you have on your phone. I think this is always a good first indicator.
Yeah, that's your initial indication. And then you can try to use it as a hotspot, right? I mean, yeah, you might burn up some data that month. Okay. But it's better than committing to a contract you're not going to be able to use. So, but I think that's a great resource you guys have on the website. You guys only are supporting YouTube right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So right now it's we restream, like Claire mentioned earlier, we restream to our own YouTube channel, but also you can schedule it to restream to your own YouTube channel. We are going to be adding restream capability to other platforms like Facebook and Twitch. That's not there yet, but it's in the works as well.
Okay, those two are literally on my list to ask you about, because I don't know, Twitch is sort of younger, or I don't know, it's a different audience than you normally. You can get family pretty easily on your Facebook. Some of them will get to a YouTube. YouTube is sort of old man social media, and then, you know, Twitch is the younger people social media, that at least video wise, that's how I feel. But there's even challenges to those. How are you guys working with, especially since you guys do endurance racing, the YouTube streaming limitations? Do you guys have a workaround?
That's a great question.
That's a good question. I was just
of
working on
course
this
we know
yesterday.
about that. Yes.
So basically what we do, and that's actually part of what we do, is we actually, if you schedule a stream through our platform, we'll break up the YouTube stream into multiple, is it 10-hour, I think, Claire, 10-hour streams to make sure we're below that 12-hour limit they have. So maybe just for those who aren't aware, basically YouTube, if you stream over 12 hours, I think it is, they allow you to live stream on a single video for more than 12 hours, but they will not save it and make it available for viewing after. Maybe it's 8 hours. I don't remember the number exactly.
Yeah, it's 12, I think.
Is it 12 hours? Okay. Yeah. So after 12 hours, so after 12 hours, basically you'll keep the live stream, which is great, but then you'll lose the ability to replay it later. So one thing that we do is we actually split it up, and we'll automatically switch to the next YouTube video without you having to disconnect and reconnect your camera. So if you stream to our platform, we'll take care, basically the way it works is you schedule a stream through our platform. We determine that it's over, 11 hours or 12 hours. We then schedule multiple YouTube streams, and we will ingest the video from the camera, and then we will automatically switch from one YouTube stream to the other after the 11th hour, so that you can actually now have two YouTube videos, and you can actually watch them and replay them after the fact.
Oh, but then the end user, mom, dad, cousins, uncles, whatever, they can still watch on one screen while they look up the transition video? Yeah.
Okay. The reality is you'd have to share that transition. So you'd have to share the new YouTube link with them. So that's the one downside, unfortunately, because there's not much we can do. If you're using two YouTube links, you're going to have to share the second YouTube link. Mm-hmm. Now, having that page we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, where we potentially have or maybe that was off podcast before we started, but we talked briefly about having like a central area where we could show all of the live streams. That would potentially help with that problem. Mm-hmm. But if not, it's just a matter of saying, hey, here's the new, we're on to hour 12, here's the new YouTube link going forward, right? Something along those lines.
You can also share the 3 links in advance, because we're going to generate the links, I think, right away, the moment your stream starts, your race starts. So you can just copy paste 3 links and say, like, try one of those and switch.
Oh yeah, that's true too. I don't know why I didn't think of that either, but okay. Yeah, that's great.
And there are the tricks we could do. Like, I think we could maybe, in the description of the video, we could always have, make sure we embed all the links. So you can find the links to the next video in the description or something. There's a couple of things we could probably do to make that transition easier for the end viewer.
Okay. I think we've covered most of the challenges and stuff with hardware, software, and connections, unless you guys have more. I'm not sure.
Well, there's I'm not sure if we have more. Honestly, we could probably talk about challenges for quite a while, but I think we did a pretty good job at covering the challenges of hardware and software. Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit more about best practices, because I know we talked about one with your camera, get it into some sort of airflow area for heat, but some best practices with your gear, probably to include the hotspot. I'm sure the hotspots overheat. Maybe you guys, since you have so much gear, how are you powering all this gear that's in the car and sort of making it interchangeable? And then maybe recommend some hardware for us.
Do you want to take that on, Erwan?
Sure. Yeah. So for best practices, maybe there's a few things that we recommend from the best practice standpoint. One thing is always to make sure that we test equipment ahead of time. So, it's one thing to buy your equipment and try it out. Don't try out your equipment like the weekend of your race, 15 minutes before green flag. Always test this out at home. Even with the hotspot, I know people test things with their kind of home Wi-Fi, which usually tends to work much better than a hotspot. So use that. And then from a equipment standpoint, we kind of talked about it a bit earlier, like place it where it makes sense from a shade perspective, airflow perspective, rain protection perspective. There's plenty of times we've had people put a hotspot in a car under direct sunlight. Car potentially there's a red flag, or potentially people are waiting to go out on track and they're sitting there in the paddock and it's just collecting sun and no air and it just overheats and then the equipment tends to shut off. So always be mindful of kind of the location in the car. Hopefully you have a shady spot. If you don't have a shady spot, at a minimum, make sure that it's getting a little bit of airflow. Like Claire said at the top of the call, there's no, a lot of this equipment's not built for this type of environment, right? Like race cars tend to be a lot of vibrations, a lot of heat. It's exposed to the elements, so just think about that as you're placing it to your car. Anything else you want to add there, Claire?
I think one of the things we've tried to educate people we're working with about is live. If you care about your live stream to be successful, it's important that you integrate it fully as part of your car prep routine. If it's an afterthought and it's a good to have, your success rate is not going to be very high. So you really have to kind of take it as seriously as everything else you do on your car to be successful at it. So have someone in the team that's in charge of the live stream, designate somebody and have them build a routine around mounting things securely, making sure the video settings and the audio settings are correctly set, making sure the position of the camera hasn't moved in between sessions, the lenses is cleaned up, all those little things, that can go wrong, just have them in your kind of checklist or worksheet at the track.
Absolutely.
And then I found you can make live streaming easy, but it's just a matter of like taking it as something that you have to be meticulous about is the key here.
I love it. I'm big on your session prep checklists. If you're going to do live streaming, develop your process and add it to your checklist. Make sure that you're checking it. The other thing, I think, especially powering your hotspot, those hotspots don't have clip in or super secure power things, ports. So when you're plugging them in, you want to make sure you're shoring up your hotspot plugs, because I know they never last, and they always get looser and looser over time. So there's lots of detail, I think, with how you're setting it up, how you're routing your power, all that sorts of stuff with this live stream, the do-it-yourself live stream setup. That's going to be key to being successful. And also probably make it easily accessible. Like, don't bury it in behind the main roll hoop. Like, it probably needs to be a little closer to the front so you don't have to crawl under your hoop to get in the back and troubleshoot, because you usually won't have time for that. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's actually a great point. Making your equipment accessible is a very good one. Like if you need to get in there, like you said, and rescan a QR code with the Yi, or if you need to, repower it, like cycle the camera or the hotspot, like making it accessible is super handy, especially I would say for endurance races, because sometimes you're doing a pit stop and you've got to do that pit stop as fast as possible. And you want to have someone be able to power cycle the hotspot because it shut off, right? So make that as easy as possible for whoever's going to be doing that. Totally agree.
In Champ Car and Lemons, when you have a prescribed stop duration, you don't want to occupy whatever time you have left over with crawling around the car that you don't have to, so
exactly.
Put that up front. Do you guys have any experience with the Sentinel or any of the other, there's a couple of other like live stream packages?
Yeah. So, Sentinel itself, we actually have not yet got our hands on one. We have worked with some teams who do have Sentinel boxes. It seems to be a pretty good option. It's the feedback we're getting. It's a good option from a feature standpoint. So it does the live streaming. It does take in video from, I think you can take it in from an HDMI input, and as well as I think they have their own camera as well that can go with it. So it's pretty versatile in the options it has. It does also have some capabilities of adding some in-car telemetry overlay, which can be interesting. So one thing that, the overlay, the race data overlay that we add onto races is mostly around, your position, your best lap, your last lap, your gap to the people in front and behind you. Some people like to have that additional in-car telemetry, and your typical GoPro and your typical Yi camera is not going to add that race car telemetry, your RPM, your temperatures and all that. So if you're looking for that, something like a Sentinel is pretty good. You can use Sentinel with our system as well. Like one thing that we have found is that the overlays you can generate tend to be not as pretty. A better way to put it. Like it's pretty raw data that comes out of them. And we also have heard some people complain about the user interface with it. Maybe that's just a learning curve thing. Like I don't have personal experience, so I can't really comment on how easy it is to use. But the feedback we got is that the user interface can be a bit challenging. And of course, then there's a price, right? So it's at a bit of a different price point. So we kind of started the call off like mentioning that you can go from really expensive to really cheap with your streaming equipment. I think, something like an all-in-one box like the Sentinel probably falls into the bit more expensive. So it's a bit more of you're a bit more serious about your live streaming than buying, say, a Yi in a hotspot, right? So the price point is quite different. So that's kind of where that falls into play. Some other kind of high-end equipment that we've had experience with is probably something where they already have an existing camera system based on a V-Box, for instance, or potentially an AIM system that's already in the car recording locally, and they want to just use that same camera feed, but live stream it. And typically in those systems, you don't have to add a camera, but what you have to add is something called an encoder, right? And that does live streaming. And so there's boxes out there, like there's a company called LiveView that makes a device which you plug into your car, which has a HDMI input. So you can do output from your V-Box, for instance, into this device, and then it will then encode the video that your V-Box would normally be recording locally. And then it will then broadcast it out to, ourselves at MyRaces.Live, or potentially directly to your Facebook, YouTube, or whatever it may be that you want to stream to, right? And again, that falls into the bit more the expensive category because, well, you've already committed some expense to having a nice AIM or V-Box camera system in the car. So there's quite a bit of cost up front there. But then eventually this live view encoder is, somewhere around the $1,000, I think. And all it's doing is encoding video coming in and then sending it out to live stream. So again, price point, you're probably a little bit closer to that Sentinel, area of expenditure. Mm-hmm. But it's good. Like we've streamed an LMP3 car, and there's an LMP3 car that from Tooth Autosport that was had a whole V-Box system with cameras facing the driver, camera facing forward, and then they purchased a live view encoder. They put it in the LMP3, and they were live streaming to us to add the race telemetry on top of it, and that worked super well, right? Like, but again, it's price point, right? It's like this is a different ball game than your Lemons race, for instance, right?
Right. Yeah. So what's a Sentinel these days? $2,500, $2,700-ish dollars?
Yeah, somewhere around there. Yeah, I would say around there. Yeah. Yep.
What's a typical do-it-yourself cost look like these days?
Well, it depends. Okay, so let's go through like a Yi hotspot setup. Typical Yi hotspot setup is probably your cheapest. I would say like $100 for the Yi on eBay if you can find one.
Okay.
Probably another $100. Well, actually, the new hotspots, Claire. I think you got a hotspot more recently from Verizon. Do you remember what the cost on that?
$400.
$400. Okay, wow, more than I anticipated. I think you can.
The hotspot. Yeah, you can buy other hotspot. I think with some provider, you can bring your own hotspot. So you just have to make sure that whatever hotspot you buy is compatible with your service provider data plan.
Yeah.
But the one that comes from the service provider are around $400. So pretty pricey there.
Yeah. I think we use a couple hotspots we have that I bought many years ago that are like used. And I think you can maybe pick those up. I have a Verizon MiFi. I think it's a 7730L or something like that. I think you can get those on eBay for like $50 to $100. So if you want to go cheap, you can get that, put your Verizon SIM card in it and it works perfectly fine. That's what we use. So now you're probably looking at, let's say, $200, and then you probably need data plan. So the data plan we haven't really talked about. That depends on how much you're going to be streaming, obviously, right? Because data plan, the more you stream, the more data you're using, the more data you need. And a small comment on data plans, something to look out for is that there's a lot of unlimited plans out there. But what they tend to do is after you reach a certain amount of bandwidth usage, they cap the data rate, so the speed at which you can send data. And so Verizon is one of the few that when you have one of their unlimited plans, it's unlimited data from a quantity perspective, but also from a speed perspective. Because I think AT&T, for instance, has an unlimited plan where, after you reach, I'm going to make up a number because I don't know the actual number, but let's say after you reach 10 gigs of data transfer, they then cap your upload at 500 kilobits per second, which really what that means is it limits the amount of data that you can send from your live stream, and it makes the video choppy. So just as a small note on your data plan is keep an eye on any restrictions around slowing down the connection after a certain amount of usage, even on those quote unquote unlimited plans. Yeah.
And they're going to try to pitch you on your download speed because that's what 99% of the people care about, right? Can I watch my YouTube videos, my Hulu, my whatever? Okay. But we need upload speed.
Correct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
and I just wanted to close. Sorry.
Yeah, go for it. No, that's something to be aware of.
I just wanted to close on the equipment. Yeah, exactly. Correct. Yeah. So on the equipment, one thing we haven't talked about. So like we talked about kind of Yi, DJI, Osmo, the Sentinels, the V boxes plus encoders, like that's all various price points. I think realistically, if you're trying to go as cheap as you can probably get a live stream going for about $300 ish. That's probably a good price point. That's going to be.
Data plan,
sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the data plan price. One trick we're using is that, obviously we have a business and we use live streaming equipment as part of this business. So for the data plan, the Verizon business plan is cheaper, is $20 cheaper than a personal data service plan. So if you have a business, it's maybe interesting to look at the business plan versus personal plan.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Oh, yeah. All my degenerate listeners are LLC'd and tax writing fools. I'm pretty sure of that.
There you go. Exactly. Save yourself $20 a month.
Right. And if you're not, don't talk to me about it because I'm not the accountant. I have one. So
there you go. Okay, I wanted to bring up the last thing. We haven't talked about one camera, which we've recommended in our blog post, which we've latched onto more recently because it does make a lot of the stuff we talked about easier. It's a new camera called the Mine A5. And this camera is super interesting because it takes in a SIM card directly in the camera. And it has some features that allow it to basically connect and stream on power on. And so you can go as simple as having your camera set it up once, right? So you obviously have to go through the setup once, which is, by the way, pretty simple. It has a screen on the back of it, which is you can use to configure the camera. It also has an app, which is a bit less intuitive. So I would actually recommend just using the screen on the back of it. But the screen's pretty large. But once you've set it up once, what's kind of cool is you can have it so that next time you power it on, it just starts to try and stream. And it has all those features we talked about with regards to reconnection as well. So if you disconnect, it just sits there and tries to reconnect over and over and over again. So we found a pretty good option because it gets rid of the need for that hotspot. Right? As long as the camera supports your provider. And in that case, we've tested it with Verizon and it works very well. So you can put a Verizon SIM card in it. And then once you've set it up once, it becomes, that routine we talked about, like making sure your camera works, and the whole routine of starting the stream right before the race becomes way easier because it's a simple turn the camera on and it can send it out, right? So we've actually used it a few times. I think you mentioned James Houghton earlier as being kind of the connection between us here, but he actually runs that camera in his car in the Grid Life series, and it's worked really well for us. Like so far, there's a few issues, but so far, knock on wood, it's probably the best alternative to a Yi plus a hotspot. In fact, I personally probably rate it as like above that even myself, in terms of ease of use and simpleness.
Okay. Yeah, and B&H Photo has them as cheap as like $420 used, and brand new $650. So that's not too bad for an all-in-one, real simple package. That's really not that bad. Yes, it's double what you said about buying a used Yi and maybe buying a used hotspot and then all that stuff. But for simplicity's sake, it seems like that's not too bad of a deal either. It's definitely somewhere like upper end of the cheap realm. So at least for me.
Yes. Yeah, I agree. Especially if you don't have to buy the hotspot, which can be very pricey.
Right.
Because if you add hotspot plus Yi, you also around $500 very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if you buy your hotspot new. Right. So.
Yep. And we actually wrote, we have on the website a whole like documentation on how to configure the MyRaces.Live for people that are finding. MyRaces is very intuitive, so I think they didn't document every single feature they have on the camera because you can find it easily. But we wanted to make for anybody that uses the MyRaces for purely live streaming, we wanted to like document the couple of steps to start it up, and that's available on the website.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys have a lot of information on the website, and so go check it out. It's, what is it? MyRaces. I'm gonna mess that up. MyRaces.Live, right?
Yeah, MyRaces.Live is right.
Yep. Okay. I keep wanting to say my race, and I don't know why. It's races. So MyRaces.
Don't forget the S.
Yeah, don't forget the S. Awesome, guys. How are you guys? We've talked a lot about the website and what you guys are doing. Is there anything we missed on how you guys are really trying to elevate this streaming game? Because let's be honest, streaming is everything right now. It is the way, I've had podcasts about partnerships and getting partnerships. And I think if you're not live streaming, you're going to have a harder time doing it. And if you're live streaming now, you probably have an easier time at getting partners. Is there anything we missed that you guys are doing? Because it seems like you were doing a lot. I looked at the website and was like, man, they're doing a lot. But now that we're having a conversation, you guys are over the top as far as I'm concerned. I'm really into it.
I mean, I think we've talked a lot about kind of what we do. And I think that, our primary purpose is really trying to make it as simple as possible. Like we talked about, like, all the challenges, right? So we try to basically make those challenges as few as possible, both from a releasing content about our discoveries with hardware. So like we talked about all the different cameras. We have a bunch of blog posts that we wrote about all the stuff we talked about today. So try and make, gain some of that, share some of that knowledge that we have. So our primary purpose is really kind of like, make this as simple as possible. And then the second thing is really now the actual experience of someone viewing your live stream, right? So the other piece of the puzzle is now let's make it interesting. And for that, we add those overlays, right? So as Claire talked about earlier, we allow you to add your race overlay, which try and make that interesting for your viewers, both from a, race telemetry standpoint, like we mentioned, as well as, you can add your sponsors if you want to gain some traction with your sponsors. We can do live QR codes, so we can actually generate QR codes for you to put over your stream. And then it's a community aspect, which is we've started a Discord where people such as yourself who are interested in live streaming can join and talk about these topics openly with other users. You can share your experience about equipment, providers. So that's the community angle. We have a Discord. We have that streamability database, which we talked about as well. So we're trying to gain share some of that knowledge as well from like the user experience standpoint of the various tracks. So that's kind of all the things that we do. So we encourage, people to check out the website, join our Discord. If you're a Discord user, we have lots of people on there who We're trying to get more people to start sharing their experiences as best they can on there, but certainly we're happy to answer questions if no one else does. And check out the website if you want to start live streaming and you want to add some overlays, add your race position and your gaps and all that automatically while you're live streaming. Just check out the website and
it's free. So we have a free version that allows you to do a bunch of things just by having an account on the website. So you this it's really everything to gain. Trying to just go and check it out. We are working on a premium version for more advanced features, but we offer a lot of things for free. So
yeah, that's awesome. And you guys are at MyRaces.Live on Instagram also. So don't forget that part.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. I really appreciate both of you coming on. Claire, Erwan, thank you for coming on the show. I learned a lot. I'm sure we could sit here and talk for another hour or two. Live streaming, at least to me, seems complicated, but you guys offer a great resource, and I really appreciate you sharing your knowledge and information with us.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Until next time, keep working on yourself, keep working on the car, and let's get faster.